You're listening to What She Said on Canada Talks.
She did it as the head of TIFF, and now as CEO, she has recharged the Academy of Canadian Cinema and Television. Welcome, Helga Stephenson.
Oh, thank you.
So, for anyone who doesn't realize what you've accomplished, let's go back just a few years to your first TIFF days when you were the publicity director, and it was the little festival of festivals.
Oh, it was. I worked for them even before I was that.
Really?
Oh yeah. I loved the festival. I went to the first one.
Yeah.
And by the second one, I knew I wanted to be there. So I joined a committee to help them raise money. We called ourselves the Chippy Committee.
The Chippy Committee?
Yeah, we were after rich people to give us money.
To chip in? Is that what it was? Where
We
did
used
the
to have
chippy come
riotous
from?
times. We'd have many glasses of wine and then decide who we'd go and...
Oh, we already love you. You're our girl. Okay.
It was great. And then they needed a director of communications, so I was with a company called Stephenson Ramsey O'Donnell, so we got that account, and we had the first party in Cannes. And my first year there, I was working in their communications press department. I got punched out at the front door of the Elgin Theatre. It was in praise of older women when...
Apparently not.
The theatre was... I was young then.
Okay, sorry.
It was oversold, but we like to refer to that as overattended. What happened was that the Globe and Mail and the Ontario Censor Board, which was big in those days, declared that there were some dirty bits in the film. So people flooded to see this sort of vaguely dirty movie. Of course, it wasn't a vaguely dirty movie. It was a great movie. But we had too many people, so I ended up getting punched at the front door and then taking a whole bunch of people to the Silver Rail for drinks.
To the Silver Rail,
Yeah.
where there would be more dirty bits.
So what was your vision, though, at the time? Because you decided to take charge.
Oh, yes. I mean, what happened was there was a vacuum at the top, so I decided to step in. I also had a vision. I also had a partner in crime in Piers Handling. So we had a very, very clear vision of what we wanted to do with the festival. So I left the filming part to him, and I did sort of the maneuvering and the strategizing and the building and the partnerships and the kind of what we used to call screw and kill that you would have to do to get your organization recognized. I mean, in those days, the Ministry of Culture in Ontario wanted to throw us out because we weren't culture. We were entertainment. As the guy said, "You are entertainment, why are you in here?" And he said, "The film goes in the theaters." And this was the Assistant Deputy Minister of Culture for Ontario. I said, "But we have our own industry, and I represent a different kind of film than the blockbusters that are going into the theaters. And this is an industry that should be starting in Ontario." So we had a lot of fights, but we had some guardian angels along the way who decided that, yes, we were culture. This is something that happens in English culture. In French culture, cinema is up there with opera, symphony, theater, visual arts, everything. In English culture, it's a little bit suspect, variety hall, maybe a little bit on the not so kosher side, you know?
So who were your champions in the government? Who helped change this?
Bernie Austrie was one. He was the guy who was, they always laughed at him because he was a brilliant deputy minister who made a lot of wonderful things happen, but he had a penchant for pink champagne that got into the press.
So, because there are many people who credit you with exposing Latin American cinema to Toronto.
Yes.
So how did that happen? And this would be part of explaining that it's cultural.
Well, yes. I mean, the Rio Festival invited somebody from the Toronto Festival to go. Wayne Clarkson was the director at the time, and he said, "I can't go." And I said, "I want to go." So I went, and I looked around, and I realized that there was something to be done. So I came back, and I said, let's do a Latin American retrospective. So he said, okay. And I said, and now I need to go to Havana. Of course, I had moved from Havana to Toronto, so that was like going home for me. So he said no. So we had a big fight, and I said, well, then screw you. I'm going to pay for my own ticket. And I went. And I developed this system with all of the filmmakers, this committee of Latin American filmmakers, which was a big, new, fabulous organization. And we got Piers involved because we needed his film brain to do all of the selection, because we were doing it from the beginning of Latin America to present day. And of course, in Latin America, once you dig into it, Brazil and Mexico and Argentina had studio systems that made Hollywood look very small.
Really?
Really?
Yeah, and I would be sitting in screening rooms in Buenos Aires looking at a film going, I know this film. Because in the old days, they used to send script scouts down into South America, and they'd buy the script, go back to Hollywood, and remake it. And the one I was seeing was Stella Dallas.
Really?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, they couldn't get the stars to work so well, but
Yeah.
the scripts they did.
The scripts.
You speak a lot of languages.
Yeah, I do.
So how many?
Well, I speak 3 reasonably well, English, Spanish, and French, and then smatterings of others. I spoke Japanese at one point when I had my Japanese period.
Did you ever live there?
Yes. I worked at Osaka 1970.
How did you get to? I thought you came from Montreal to Toronto, but how did Havana slip in
well,
there?
no, there was
And Osaka.
there was a little circuitous route. I graduated from McGill, born and raised in Montreal. Graduated from McGill, hit the road, and went to work in Osaka. And in order to get the job, you had to speak Japanese. So I had to go and study like a mad woman. I was walking up and down the streets in Montreal, speaking to myself in Japanese.
What
This
was
was
Helga?
by the way, this was pre-sushi, right? So the
All
only
right.
Japanese meal I could get was sukiyaki. I almost died. I ate too much sukiyaki. So I went there, and then I sort of did a little hippie tour of Southeast Asia, where I worked for Air America, ran a bar, taught English, ran a band with Sneezy Waters in it, played orphanages, played the Hilton, did all kinds of things. And then came back to Montreal, which was not a good place for a girl named Helga Stephenson, because it was going very French. So I'd be 4th in a row. It'd be a French-Canadian man, a French-Canadian woman, an English man, and then an English woman. And I thought, uh-oh. And I agreed with them, actually, so I thought, time to go. So I hit Trudeau's Ottawa, which was great fun, and worked at the National Arts Centre and the Canada Council, where I call it my PhD in Canadian culture, because all of it went through the National Arts Centre at that time. Also in Ottawa at that time was the Canadian Film Institute, where, unbeknownst to me, Wayne Clarkson and Linda Beath and Piers Handling were working. And I was very addicted to their programming. So I always thought that if I could ever get to film, I liked the reach of film. I felt film reached way more people than the straight classical arts did. Although I'm very, very grateful for my training in the classical arts.
So where does the passion for film come from, do you think?
Well, in Montreal, I grew up in an era where kids couldn't go to movie theaters. It was forbidden. So it was always a forbidden
Why
fruit
was it
for
forbidden?
me. They had some big fire where a lot of people got killed, and so they banned movie theaters for children. So birthday parties were Tammy, and they ran movies, The town hall ran the guy running through the swamps in Florida with the crocodiles, the sort of Steven Spielberg growing up kind of movies. They ran them, but we couldn't get into theaters. They broke it. They allowed young people in for the 10 Commandments.
Well, it is Quebec.
Quebec. So we were allowed to, I was just mesmerized by it. So it always had that kind of forbidden fruit element, and I've always loved film since the day I saw the first film.
So when did you know that TIFF was going to be what it has turned out to be? When did you have an inkling that you guys could actually do it?
I always knew it.
Did you?
Oh, absolutely. It was so perfectly positioned. It was so perfectly primed. It had such a perfect audience. It had all of the perfect elements. I always felt that our job, and it was brilliantly conceived. I mean, the programming in that festival has always been about the best in the world, since day one. And I have to say that, at the end of the day, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you really have to have a superb product in order to build something like that. We always had it. We had a great city. We had a great everything.
Great posters.
And
I have
yeah.
one from every year. Fabulous
And so,
posters.
I really felt that our job was not to screw it up, to keep it on the path that it was going to go. And when Piers came, and I took over, what we did was we decided that we were going to very much internationalize the film festival, that we were going to go directly to the film directors. We were going to bypass all of the sort of rotten, corrupt little film organizations that were around. Well, they were. It was payoff time, and it was all kinds of stuff, and we refused to do it. And then once we started that, we realized that we needed to actually institutionalize the festival, because we needed, my classical arts administration background. I needed to build an audience, and you can't build an audience in 10 days a year. We needed to train them. And I also realized that film, the visual movie, the moving image was the language of the young. And that it would be like a kid with some paintbrushes and some paper, but no art gallery, no museum, nothing to learn from, nothing to see, nothing to draw from. And I realized that, and with Piers, obviously, that we both realized that what we needed to do was to establish a film institution, so that, somebody in the Ministry of Culture couldn't have like a contrary idea and blow us away, because we were dependent on that money. And also to bring film in as legitimate culture for Ontario and for the rest of Canada.
We are going to head into a break, but when we come back, we are going to talk a little bit more about film and theater with Helga Stephenson.
Can you believe it?
and an interesting story of work-life balance. So stay with us here at Sirius XM.
You're watching What She Said on YouTube.
We have in studio with us our simply the best guest today, the iconic Helga Stephenson. Now, we were talking about TIFF and how you built that, but
a lot of people.
Well, I know, but hey, you're our simply the best guest today, so it's all about you. But in 1993, you passed the torch to Piers Handling.
Yes,
you pretty much groomed him to take the helm. Would you say? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we were a partnership, and I was not prepared to see the festival go to somebody who wasn't on the plan that we had devised,
But you did this. You wanted to step out of the spotlight to raise your daughter.
My angel baby from heaven.
Was that a difficult decision? Doesn't sound like it was.
No, it wasn't.
So the work-life balance, how did you... Because you kept active in film, but this was more important to you.
Yes, it was. I was a single mom. Rachel's dad is around, but not so active. And so I decided, you know what I did? I interviewed a lot of women. And I had the baby late in life, so I interviewed a lot of women. And I said, "What if do you have any regrets?" Almost to a person, they said, "I wish I'd had spent more time with my child when they were children," because they were women building careers and running families and raising children and all of that stuff all at the same time. And I thought, she came late into my life, and if I'm never around, then the major stamp on this child will be a nanny. And I don't want that.
But people, your friends refer to her as the miracle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why?
Well, because when I could have, I didn't, and when I wanted to, I couldn't. I was, they don't tell women that, if you want children in your life, don't mess around, get at it.
Yeah, well, my obstetrician said, "Oh, well, the best age is 16, so you're over the hill," because I said, "Oh, well, I don't know, I'm 28," and he said, "Oh, 28, 30, doesn't matter, you're 10 years over the hill."
Well, what is it, Dr. Oz now, what does he say? He says, after 30, you're in the 50-50 club or something?
Yeah.
But nobody ever said that before. Your whole job was to not get pregnant.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they didn't say, that your chances of getting pregnant later are not so good or slim to none or whatever. Like there was just a whole breadth of knowledge we never had.
Well, now there's women freezing their eggs when they're young so that they can have young eggs, when they want to get pregnant at 35, 40. But that's, a whole different process of what you have to go through. But it seems to me that it's generally the women that put their careers on hold than the men.
Yep.
So why is that? And if you were alone, as you said, a single parent, you really didn't have a choice at all.
No, I probably didn't have a choice, but there are single women who do it a different way. I decided that this child, I was 45, I wasn't 35.
Oh,
okay,
that's old.
Oh no, I did a photo flash finish into the delivery room, and my doctor just hung her head, Carolyn Bennett, who's now an MP. And she just hung her head and she said, oh God, oh God. I said, what? And she said, my office is going to be filled with women tomorrow saying, why not me? Why can't I have a baby? And I said, yes, it is. And I would have been one of those women.
Do you attribute that to luck? And what role has luck played, do you think, in your life?
Oh, luck has been on my side a lot of the time. Hard work, though, too.
Absolutely.
Hard work. I think that I'm a syndrome of, how women get pregnant after they adopt?
Yes, it's funny. You hear that.
Well, another syndrome is women get pregnant after their mother dies.
Really?
Yes.
That I haven't heard.
Yes. My friend in Philadelphia told me this. She said, oh, you're one of those who gets pregnant after their mother dies. And I said, oh, I didn't know about that.
Mm.
It's a syndrome. It doesn't happen maybe as much as the adoption thing, but it does happen. So I got pregnant almost 9 months after my mother died.
Oh, amazing.
So what about the people in your life, your friends?
Mm-hmm.
What role do they play?
Oh, they're my support. They're my crutches. They're where I go to cry or to jump up and down. I couldn't live without them, and I certainly couldn't live without my family.
Well, your friends have described you. Let's hear this from a number of people. You're described by them as loyal to a fault, the person they would most like in their corner if something happens,
Oh, that's nice.
someone who will fight harder for them than anyone else in the world, and a steamroller who never forgets to call when someone is sick or needs help, even if she's in the middle of the worst work crisis ever. Now, those aren't qualities that you normally or always associate with highly successful people, but is this part of what makes you unstoppable, do you think? That you will stop in the middle of something and call someone and say, are you feeling okay?
I suppose it's checking back in with your own humanity and with general humanity and not getting carried away, It's very hard, for example, when you're the head of the festival, you do get a fat head. You have a lot of people running around telling you that you're fabulous morning, noon, and night. You have a lot of people who will do anything because they're filming the festival.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's very important, I always think, to not take it too seriously and to stay human. Because at the end of the day, all of that stuff goes away. That's the passing parade. And what will sustain you are your deep relationships with your friends and with your family. If you're lucky enough to have a family that you want to be friends with.
That helps.
It helps.
But now, during the parenting period, you weren't exactly idle because you were busy co-founding the Human Rights Watch Festival in Canada, as well as working on the Reykjavik International Film Festival.
I'm a busy bee. I have to keep busy. So I was chairman of Viacom Canada for a while, where we gave away a lot of money.
That's nice.
Yes, it was.
Where was I?
Yeah, I know. And then I brought Human Rights Watch to Canada with Brenda Dinnick, a friend of mine, who coincidentally, during my regnum at TIFF, she was the director of the New York Film Festival, and we became friends. She became very involved with Human Rights Watch. Human Rights Watch were looking to expand into Canada, into Europe, into all kinds of places. They wanted to internationalize themselves. And so, as an operation, because obviously they are international. Mm-hmm. And so, Wendy Keys called me and called Brenda and said, would you help? And we said, sure, we're there. And we sat at Brenda's kitchen table and began the work. And then they wanted a film festival, so I had 20 pairs of eyes looking at me, and I said, okay, we'll have a film festival. And then Reykjavik called because they were a new festival, and a producer, the guy who produced Twin Peaks, phoned and said, they need you, go and help them. He's Icelandic. You notice there's always Icelanders running around in the background in their sweaters and the tinkle of the ice cubes in their cocktail glasses. And I go, oh, where'd that come from? Well, there's an Icelander. So I went home to Reykjavik because I'm Icelandic. And I got to meet all my family, and I can trace my family there back to 1,000.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, well, but it's not very many people. That's why they do all the DNA and genetic tests in Iceland, because it's such a small and a relatively pure pool.
And the names are, I mean, you can still tell that in the name. It's like the son of and family of.
Well, I'd be Helga Stephenson. I wouldn't be Stephenson.
Right,
I'd
okay.
be a daughter.
I think Stephenson is easy enough to pronounce.
Now, Helga, you're in fact getting a Human Rights Watch award coming up this March 24th, and you must that must make you pretty proud.
Oh, I mean, it's incredible because I have the biggest admiration for that organization. I think they are the best in the world. I think they are the blue chip of human rights organizations. Their work is impeccable. It's magnificent. It actually changes things. And that they would, attach themselves to me is beyond belief. I'm just blown away, frankly.
Oh. Well, we are going to take another break. When we come back, we want to talk about your current career, the Academy of Canadian Film and Television. Seems you have a bit of a soft spot for lost causes, but it's no longer
it's not lost.
Not anymore, and it's no longer a snooze fest to watch either. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back at What She Said.
Hello there, I'm Christine Bentley in studio with Kate Wheeler, and we have our Simply the Best guest, and she really is the best, Helga Stephenson. Iconic, and we're going to move back. We've talked about your career before 2011, but your current career, in 2011 you decided it was time for Act 2. So you took on what everyone was calling a lost cause, even though you poo-pooed that before the break.
Yes.
The Academy of Canadian Film and Television. So is it just that you can't resist a challenge, Helga?
Well, they were in trouble, so, and I had time.
Oh, okay.
And so, and I thought, well, and I always think of that cocktail napkin that says, old age and treachery will outdo youth and skill. So I thought, no, they need some help, and I have some time, so let's get this together. What fascinated me was that they were at their low point precisely at the time when Canadian talent is at its high point here and around the world. Mm-hmm. The shows are doing better than they have ever done. Mm-hmm. People are watching them by the millions. You have Canadian talent that's taking the world by storm. Nobody's hiding the fact that they're Canadian anymore. They're dotting back and forth. So precisely at the moment of maybe the industry's greatest success, I think I've been around for most of the industry, as you know. So, I mean, I've watched it and I go, well, what do you mean? This is like the best time ever.
But why is it that we have actors and singers in here saying that they still don't feel there's a star system in Canada?
Well, there isn't. We're so bloody modest half the time.
How can we change that?
I don't know. I'm trying.
Can we ask you to do that for us?
Yeah, I'll do that too.
Is that a lost cause?
No, I don't think it's a lost cause. I think things like the Vancouver Olympics and that own the podium and sort of, pumping up of all our athletes was just a spectacular moment in the Canadian psyche. Like, shall we talk about the Canadian psyche? We don't tout ourselves as we should. Now, I don't think that we can change the Canadian personality, but I think things like the Vancouver Olympics, I think all of those kind of, even electing John Tory, okay? I think these are all things where people are finally saying, no, we deserve much, 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 much better.
Well, that's what this show tries to do.
Yes.
We find Canadian women in particular do not like to blow their own horns. And there are some fabulous stories. I mean, here you are. But we hear them every day from women that are very, very modest. And there's and also the tall poppy syndrome, I think, here is.
Well, I mean, they talk about it. I ignore all that stuff. I've always ignored all that stuff because I just think, well, where's it going to get me? It's going to get me nowhere. So I concentrate on the sort of the positive side of things, and I just move forward because I like to, and because I think that the vast array of our talent deserves an institution like the Academy that is going to celebrate them as hard and as big and as loud and as best we can.
Now, you've changed the actual awards show into something that is watchable. Because it disappeared for a while because it was a snooze fest. So what changes are you most proud of?
Well, I'm very, very proud of that. I'm very proud of the support of the industry. The industry, I love this industry because this industry is filled with very smart people. You don't always agree with them. That's okay. That's life. But the thing about both the film and the digital and the television industry, these are very smart people who are very passionate and who have dedicated themselves to something creative, to leaving, as a friend puts it, a ring around the bathtub, to leave something behind. And I think that they deserve the support and the praise that all of it that we can get for them. And the interesting thing that also happened at the same time was that you don't have to go through mainstream media anymore. You can create your own media. You can go through the web. There's like 1 million more channels for you to do the promotional part of the piece. In the old days, if you didn't get an article in the Globe or the Star or Maclean's, you were dead.
Right.
Now you've got thousands of other ways to do it, and so that's where we go. They don't want to cover it the way we want it covered, fine, we'll go and get it covered somewhere else, or we'll cover it ourselves, or we'll do something. But it is, I go back to the moment of time that we live in, which is the most successful period ever of Canadian film, television, and digital is this little tsunami that is just creeping up behind us, that is going to, take over everything.
So what advice would you give to young people out there who would like to get into the industry and be successful like you?
Well, there are a couple of things. First of all, there are thousands, millions of young people who want to get into this business. They love this business. This is mother's milk to them. The moving image, in whichever way it's portrayed, whether it's TV or web or film, that's their language. They're filming all day, every day, with their taking pictures and shooting with their phones and sending and packaging, and they're doing that all the time. What I would say is, wiggle your way in somewhere, and like with anything, my advice always is you have to be a dog with a bone. Like, never let it go. Or remember that famous Winston Churchill commencement address where he stood up and he said, "Never, ever, ever, ever give up. Thank you."
That's about it. And then he went and had a good cigar.
Yeah,
that was his speech?
That was his speech.
Okay.
But short and sweet. People don't want to listen to long speeches anymore.
Good takeaway.
A good takeaway. So tell us about this year's Canadian Screen Awards.
Well, we're going to the Four Seasons for the first time, so that's going to be kind of very jazzy, and we're going to have a huge red carpet that's going to go down the length of the whole building on University Street. We have, of course, Andrea Martin, who's like the best. And what a great woman, what a great year for a woman to be the host, with all the nonsense going on in the TV industry.
Absolutely, but she's not Canadian.
Oh, yes, she is. She's really. She didn't have 2 passports. I mean, really. I mean, she is one of us, and always has been.
I say she is. But
yeah.
She does point that out occasionally. She feels a little bit guilty about not being. So now the broadcast airs on March the 1st, right?
Yeah.
On CBC.
But before that, we have a whole week of stuff.
So what stuff?
Well, we have 2 more nights of TV and digital awards that will be streamed. We have nominee receptions. We have industry days. We have free screenings down at TIFF where we shot a television show, Women Who Can Act. Women who act. Can you imagine? It's Patricia Rozema interviewing Tatiana Maslany, Sandra Oh, Andrea Martin, and Ellen Page.
Wow.
Talking
All
about
women
their
who
work.
act,
All
yeah.
women who act.
Orphan Black is just
It's
taken
an
the world by
astonishing
storm.
piece of work.
I
I mean,
know,
that
it's
girl's
amazing.
on fire. She's into the big times. I just love it when you open up Vanity Fair, and one month it's Tatiana Maslansky as the big, star, and then you open up the next month and it's Sarah Gaden, and you go, well, you see, this is the good time.
So what's your most memorable moment from past CSAs? Do you have one?
No, I'm building. I'm building my moments.
You're building your
Well, for me, it's always a moment of terror. Anybody who goes into this business, it's just when you start the festival, it's a moment of terror. You think, well, we've built it now, I hope it works, right? And so that night is a moment of terror. And a lot of fun, though, and a lot of happiness, because it's a moment of celebration and happiness. So that part is great. But there is terror lurking in every moment.
But
So-
you let that fear go. We hear time and time again from women who sit where you are sitting that it doesn't matter how scared you are or how many times you fail, as long as the last thing you did is a success.
That's right. That's right. And you hope it's a success so you can go and make it better the next year.
Exactly.
So
that's really-
where do you
that's
see
really what you
things in
want.
5 or 10 years?
Oh, frankly, I mean, I'd like a national holiday, but
Oh, she doesn't aim low. She doesn't aim low. Oh, are you going to start the Twitter campaign now? Oh, boy.
So now for people who want to follow along, you're streaming the shows. Are they streamed on the Academy website?
academy.ca and probably cbc.ca also. Yeah.
CBC.ca.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How hard was it to convince the CBC to come back to airing this broadcast? Or when
the
you
CBC
took over, was it fine?
No, the CBC have been spectacular. I mean, the CBC stepped in and said, we are here, we will do it. And they did the last Geminis and the last Genies. And then we all sat down and we had the industry saying, please combine the awards. CBC saying, please combine the awards. And the board saying, please combine the awards. And so we did it. And the CBC have been a dream partner.
Wonderful.
Yeah, steadfast, loyal, and there.
Well, we will be watching.
Oh, good.
We will be watching. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope that all Canadians will support the 2015 CSAs. The broadcast airs on March 1st on CBC, again hosted by Andrea Martin, and maybe we'll have you back afterwards to tell us all about it.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd be happy to come.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.